Okay, we talked about the three states of matter. We talked about matter that exists in the solid state, the liquid state, and the gaseous state. Solids have less molecular kinetic energy, and gases have more molecular kinetic energy. So how can we change a substance from one state to the other? Substances can change their state by either absorbing heat energy from their surroundings, meaning their environment, or losing heat energy to their surroundings or to their environment. If a substance is absorbing heat energy from its environment, the molecules are starting to move faster and faster and faster. They're gaining energy. If a substance is losing heat energy to the environment, the molecules are starting to move slower and slower and slower because they're losing energy. Some general ideas we should keep in mind when discussing phase changes is that heat energy is involved in all phase changes. You're either losing heat or gaining heat. Heat is either absorbed from the environment or heat is lost to the environment. Let's look at scenarios where a substance is absorbing heat energy from the environment. In this case, a substance is starting with a lower molecular kinetic energy and going towards a higher molecular kinetic energy, or moving from a solid towards a gas. So as this substance absorbs heat energy from its environment, the molecules start moving faster and faster and faster. At a certain point, the solid is going to start to melt, becoming a liquid. The liquid will continue to gain that heat energy, eventually causing it to boil and then turn into a gas. When a substance turns from a liquid to a gas below the boiling point, it's called evaporation. When a substance starts to lose heat to its environment, the molecules start to slow down. So the substance goes from a state where it has high molecular kinetic energy towards a state that has low molecular kinetic energy. So as the substance loses heat to the environment, it cools down, meaning the molecules move slower and slower and slower. When a gas goes to a liquid state, it's called condensation. As the liquid continues to cool, it'll eventually start to freeze, going to a solid state. So solids have the lowest molecular kinetic energy and gases have the highest molecular kinetic energy. Some things we need to be careful to remember is that while a solid is melting, the temperature of the substance remains the same. The temperature at which something starts to melt is called the melting point. Let's look at what happens during each phase change. Let's first look at when a solid turns to a liquid. We call this melting. During this phase change, the substance is absorbing heat energy from the environment. The temperature at which melting starts to occur is called the melting point. For ice, that temperature is 0 degrees Celsius. Remember, ice is just another name for solid water because the molecules are still H2O. They're just in the solid state. The melting point of a substance is also a physical property. Different substances have different melting points, so not everything melts at 0 degrees Celsius. Some substances have high melting points, which means it may have to heat up to 2,000 degrees Celsius to melt. Some of them have lower melting points, so things may melt at negative 20 degrees Celsius. Once a substance reaches its melting point, and as long as it's absorbing heat energy from its environment, it will start to melt. During that phase, while this ice or a substance is melting, the temperature will remain constant. So even if you're adding heat energy, the substance will not continue to get warmer. It'll maintain its temperature even though it is absorbing heat, as long as it is going through a phase change, meaning melting. Once the solid has completely melted and the substance is continuing to absorb heat energy, the liquid will start to warm up. So then you will see an increase in temperature. So as the liquid increases in temperature, it'll eventually reach a state where it starts to boil. The temperature at which something starts to boil is called its boiling point. So as a liquid turns to a gas, it's called boiling or vaporization. During boiling, the temperature does not get higher. The temperature remains constant because it is a phase change. The boiling point for water is 100 degrees Celsius. Vaporization that occurs below the boiling point is called evaporation. The boiling point of a substance is also a physical property, and different substances have different boiling points. Let's look at the phase changes that occur when a substance loses heat to the environment or cools down. When a substance goes from a gas phase to a liquid phase, it is said to be condensing. The substance is losing heat to the environment, and the molecules are slowing down and coming closer together. As the gas becomes a liquid, the temperature remains the same because it is a phase change. So hopefully you're recognizing a pattern here. During phase changes, temperatures remain constant. They don't change. The condensation point of water is also 100 degrees Celsius. So if water molecules in the gaseous state are losing heat energy and it hits 100 degrees Celsius, they will start to condense. As the water continues to cool, the liquid water will eventually hit its freezing point. So as a liquid turns into a solid, it's considered freezing. During freezing, the temperature remains constant. The temperature at which a liquid starts to freeze is called the freezing point. And for water, that's 0 degrees Celsius. What you should notice is that the freezing point and melting points of a substance are the same. And the boiling point and the condensation point of a substance are the same. It just depends on whether or not heat energy is being absorbed from the environment by the substance. In that case, it would be melting and boiling, or whether or not it's losing heat energy to the environment. In that case, it would be condensing and freezing. The freezing point is also a physical property that helps us identify substances. So the point at which things melt and freeze, or boil and condense, are physical properties that help us identify different substances. Some substances can go directly from the solid state to the gas state. Therefore, they are gaining energy. When this occurs, it's called sublimation. You can see this sometimes with what we call dry ice. Solid carbon dioxide goes directly to a gas. Smoke machines use this technology. That solid substance is absorbing energy so quickly that it goes directly from a solid to a gas. Just a quick review. The phase changes we discussed today are melting, evaporation or boiling, which can also be called vaporization, condensation or condensing, and freezing. And these are all physical properties because the substance is remaining the same. Solid H2O is made up of the same molecules as liquid H2O. They're made up of hydrogen and oxygen atoms. And liquid H2O is made up of the same molecules as gaseous H2O. So the substance doesn't change during a phase change. It remains the same, just in a different state. It just has a different amount of kinetic molecular energy. Okay, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. We'll be walking around the room. All right, have a good night.